Hello, everyone. Ingrid here from No More Noise Toronto, and this is a summary of the construction working group meetings that we had in March of 2025. Let's get into it. So No More Noise Toronto is focused on the noises that wake us up, keep us up, and disturb us day and night with grassroots. And we have over 1,550 supporters, along with the support of Fontra and Foster, which is the Federation of North and South Toronto Residents Associations. We're data and process oriented, engaged in the civic process at City Hall, and we're very happy to be collaborating with different city divisions and also different organizations that all want to learn more and reduce noise in our cities. So first and foremost, noise is a public health issue. Construction, while we need to build homes, we also need to protect the people that are already living in their homes that cannot sleep at night and cannot focus during the day. And for some people, they live in a construction zone for years because of the condos that are going up in their area. And they experience many of these health impacts. And so we need to look at noise really as a health issue and mitigate it as much as possible. So construction noise is all over in Toronto, and that includes both sound and vibration. Sounds from the trucks idling and beeping, gearing, coming and going, loading and ungoing, preparing the site, the augers, the drilling, the excavating, the jackhammers, the generators. This is often where vibration comes in. Building can also produce both sounds and vibration. The cranes, the hammering, the moving of materials, more backup beepers, concrete, pours and generators. And finally, the workers themselves. Sometimes they arrive early to beat the traffic and they're organizing coffee at 4:30 or 5 in the morning, shouting to each other from their trucks. They slam their doors, and that is also something that bothers people in there when they're still trying to sleep. They don't have to get up yet. And there's many actors when it comes to construction. There's the city that has their city bylaws. Then there's the province with their environmental regulations. There's Metrolinks, which is an agency of the province that contracts out the work. And then there's Infrastructure Ontario that funds many transportation and building projects. And then there's large and small developers, there's the home renovations, and then residents. So the city of Toronto can regulate noise. You can see here that they can regulate construction noise, but they cannot regulate noise from provincial, federal, infrastructure projects. It's hard for us to know which ones are which. And then we have the City of Toronto Noise Bylaws, which is Chapter 591. And in that, it states that construction noise is not permitted when it is clearly audible from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. the next day, or 9 a.m. on Saturdays and all day Sunday and statutory holidays. However, in April 2020, the province of Ontario passed Ontario Regulation 130/20, which limits the city's ability to prohibit and regulate certain types of noise. And here they talked about construction projects and services associated with the healthcare sector. And when you look at 2020, that was pandemic times. And then any other construction activity in the city between the hours of 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. But it's revoked, but no resident knows this. And so what is actually allowable and not allowable construction noise? It's really hard to know. There are exemptions that are built into those noise bylaws. For example, major transit work can continue all night in order to meet project deadlines, continuous pouring of concrete, large crane work, necessary municipal work, and emergency work that cannot be performed during regular business hours. There's a couple news clips here. City News has allowed, says City of Toronto has allowed Metrolinks construction to happen 24/7 to get the LRT up and running. Well, doesn't seem to have helped, has it? And the city also from Metrolinks has allowed 24-hour construction is necessary to speed up completion time and take advantage of lower traffic volumes, weather, and crew availability. But what about the people that live in that area? They shouldn't have to deal with 24-hour construction. And there's also a table for you for a table of noise exemption permits. So what are the fines and what's the reporting process? Well, you can make a service request, which is what the City of Toronto calls a noise report, and basically look up 311, create a service request, type in construction, and you'll be able to report construction noise. I've provided a link for you here, and here are the fines, $500 and $700. But we all know that these bylaws are not often enforced. So how often do they actually issue and collect those fines? And the other issue is communication about noise to us. And sometimes it happens in councillor newsletters. Councillor Paula Fletcher has a lot of Metrolinks projects or Ontario Line projects in her ward, so her newsletter is filled with them. But we also have city notices and site notices. And so here's an example of a site notice here. City notices you might get into your mailbox. But the problem is that they're not timely. Sometimes they're issued the day before, or they're out of date, or there's something that changed on the construction site, which then makes the permit inaccurate. And the communication to the residents is not enough. And not enough to allow us to prepare and either leave or make alternative arrangements. So the province is also involved in noise. They have two documents here, Noise in Our Environment, which is learn what you can do about noise in your neighborhood. And here is a list of the provincially regulated noises. Heavy machinery or equipment, ventilation equipment, heating and ventilation or air conditioning systems, compressors, dust collectors, on-site truck traffic, and refrigeration trucks. And then there's also a list of renewable energy sources. And then there's the environmental noise guidelines, stationary and transportation sources. And this is to have proper control of the sources of noise emissions to the environment. And then there's Metrolinks, which is an agency of the province. And they sometimes produce noise and vibration reports, but whenever they are in operation in your neighborhood or in my neighborhood, then there's noise. It's like, well, it's easy to talk to a person and possibly say, you know, like what's to do with the noise here? Can you tone it down? But then they'll say, oh, it's actually the city. And then the city will say, oh, it's actually Metrolinks. So it's really complicated. And who knows what the exemptions are? How do we follow up on that? And so I have in the side here, put the Ontario Line contact information. So you can email them at ontarioline@metrolinks.com or call them at 416-212-5100. So then we have backup beepers that are on just about every work site, and they are actually provincially regulated, just like sirens are. And there's different types. So what you hear mostly is tonal beepers, but there's also broadband, and some city trucks are starting to have that, and other trucks where it sounds more like a versus a whoop, 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 right? So those are also available, and they're much less disturbing to those around them. And then there's also vibration. You can actually have sounds that are so low that we can't hear them, but they vibrate and we can feel them. So what are some of the solutions to construction noise? Better and quieter equipment, better processes for reporting and enforcing noise bylaws, better barriers, stronger requirements for noise mitigation and lower threshold, have no construction days to give people a break, better road surfaces, different backup beepers. I just want to go back to the fourth point there, stronger requirements for noise mitigation. When I look at the contracts, I see noise reporting as being a requirement, but not noise mitigation. And that to me is one of the biggest flaws of this whole process. So in our discussion, there was lots of comments. Chris Glover actually has a petition to stop the endless construction noise. If we do require, let's say the city of Toronto requires that noise mitigation be a part of contracts, the costs might be difficult to recover for the company. I don't care. But that's a realistic, that's a dollars and cents argument. And Todd was saying that the TTC is actually focused on noise monitoring, and they do try their best, but we all know that money is scarce, and sometimes maintenance is not done on streetcar tracks, and sometimes when those streetcars turn those corners, oh my goodness, that's loud. And he was also saying that there's about 600 noise monitors around the city. But when the contractors have that data and they collect it, that's not necessarily shared with the city, or it's not shared with the city in due time in order to change anything. So individuals like a project manager on site can influence how much noise mitigation is done. So that tells me that we need to actually educate contractors and their project managers. Bylaw can come, and when there is a complaint, bylaw can come and do the measurement, but there's no change, and they often come after the noise is gone. Like that whole piece doesn't work. And what is the process if there is a charge? Do the fines just simply get paid and they keep on doing whatever they're doing? Is it a cost of business? And then there's a member had a generator and a phone box story. She had a generator close to her home that was from one of the Ontario Line Metrolinks projects. And then it was loud and noisy. And then she went to another site, and there was a nice phone box around a generator, and the generator was nice and quiet, and the noise was contained within that. So there seems to be discrepancies between the sites. Why is that? Another member mentioned, you know, when they knock the wood off the concrete forms, maybe they shouldn't use a hammer. How about using a rubber mallet? Those are a lot quieter. So it's about techniques and equipment. And we don't know what our options, and we don't know when noise for provincial projects is outside of the permitted hours. Should they just be able to do it anytime, all the time? Like, people are not properly informed. And then the second page of comments here is that businesses can be, so Todd was saying that businesses can be shut down to chronic noise issues, and he had the example of a firing range. And the residents pushed and they got that done. So, you know, sometimes there are there are success stories, but we have to find the right person who's willing to champion that local issue. There is a database of court cases, so I put that link in there. And there's also a Toronto local appeal body, which is independent of the city. And if anybody wants information on that, just let me know, info@nomoreNoiseToronto.com. And he was saying that, you know, often and this is true of many cases, is that often when there's a certain number of complaints around something, there's one or two people that will continuously, that noise just drives them bonkers, and they will continuously make reports. And some people will say, well, that's some person targeting that industry. Well, what if that person has autism? What if that person has an acquired brain injury and that noise is absolutely excruciating to them? I shouldn't say that person or those two people that logged all of those reports are in the wrong. There's also impulsive noise, firing, backfiring, barking dogs, pickleball. And apparently pickleball went to the provincial offenses court and they were shut down for 2 years in Niagara until they managed that noise. And there was also a member who did really good research on broadband backup beepers and thinks that we should be able to get a win on those. So I'd be interested in seeing how many people are, you know, up in arms about backup beepers, and maybe that's something we look at in the future. The other thing that was commented on is rented equipment. Usually it is just always two-stroke engines and combustion engines and the loudest of equipment, and there should be quieter equipment available. And somebody mentioned Atlas equipment, which is out in at the edge of Toronto towards Mississauga. And apparently you can't rent any more gas-powered equipment from them. It is all electric. So kudos to them. And so and the last bullet point there is liability. And so that's where construction companies and other companies have often thought the louder the better to protect to protect themselves. But they're now saying is that broadband has different sounds and it actually attracts people's attention, where we just block out the backup beepers now because we've heard them so much. And apparently BC is doing something different. So there you have it. So there's the wrap up on construction noise. If you're interested in helping us and moving forward to working towards reducing some of these noises, please join a working group. And you got the QR code there. You can also go to nomoreNoiseToronto.com and click on join a working group, and you'll get the form. And then you will join a working group, and then you'll be part of that set of communications. So finally, let's create a better Toronto by reducing noise. Thank you so much for your attention, and I wish you all a good day. And of course, I wish you a very good sleep. Take care.